Did you know that ticket prices can actually go down right before the game? That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time tracks ticket prices in real time from thousands of trusted sellers, then shows you all the best deals. So we can get tickets at the last minute for up to 60% off. Download Game Time now.
Hey folks, welcome into the Cam Rogers Show on this Wednesday morning, February 14th, 2018. That means, yes, it is indeed Valentine's Day. Love is in the air. Except when you're Cam Rogers, forever alone. But I'm with all of you right now on the Cam Rogers Show, and I appreciate you giving me the company. Check me out on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99, a fantastic show on tap for you. Before we get into all the sports content and all that, I need the public opinion to weigh in. Will you be my Valentine today, folks? Give me a heart for OMG, of course, or a laughing face for, no, you're some random guy on my Facebook feed. Get out of here. Which I totally would understand if you go with the laughing face. But hey, if you're feeling generous on this day of love and giving, etc., give me an OMG, of course. If it's just Lori Rogers, my mom throwing in the heart, I guess that'll be okay, but let's try to prevent that. All right, appreciate the votes as they flow in here on Facebook Live. It's the Cam Rogers Show, episode 65, as we take you through an update across Pyeongchang and the 2018 Olympics. So here's where we stand in the medal count. Germany now in the lead. If you watched the show on Monday, you may recall Norway and the Netherlands were up there at the top. Germany takes the number 1 spot. There is the Netherlands at number 2, then Norway, and then Canada at 4. All of us at number 5, the United States, Japan at 6, France at 7, OAR at number 8, there's Austria at 9, and then Sweden at 10. Shaun White, congratulations to him at 31 years old, winning the gold medal yesterday in the snowboard halfpipe, and really a fantastic performance for him. And you look at the score, too. His score yesterday was really, really impressive. And Shaun White, one of the better snowboarders out there, score of 97.75, which is near exceptional. And Shaun White really representing Americans well yesterday in snowboarding. So there is your Olympics medal count. Of course, you'll get an update about that as well when Quick Hitters comes at you here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. As I mentioned, this is the Cam Rogers Show. Get me wherever you go by downloading the podcast version. Head on to chatsports.com/Cam Show to get the iTunes podcast of the Cam Rogers Show. So again, if you got to head out on this Wednesday morning, go buy flowers for the wife or the significant other, whatever the case may be, don't you worry. Hit on iTunes and you can download the Cam Rogers Show and get me as you go to get those chocolates for that special somebody in your life. All right, here's the deal. This is the schedule for today. So I'm going to open up about Johnny Manziel. He had an exclusive with Good Morning America on Monday. Talk a little bit about that and how I feel he deserves a second chance. I'll give you a few reasons, then I'll play a few clips from that interview on Monday. At the 15-minute mark, that will transition me into the ultimate XFL offense because all of you YouTube commenters out there love it so much. I am giving you another XFL segment. I am giving you my top potential offense that could go down in 2020. Skipping over the offensive line because people don't like to hear about it for some reason. But at other positions, wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, don't you worry, I got you covered. And then at the 30-minute mark, well, we're going to focus on the NFL. I got your top potential free agent additions for the AFC South and NFC South, respectively. I did the North divisions on Monday. Also have done the East divisions as well. And, of course, I have to do the West. Probably will do that on Friday. And then at the 45-minute mark, 5 potential franchise tag candidates. So I'll go through some big-time names who could remain on their respective squads with the franchise tag. And then, with time permitting, a final word about some pretty bad PR for college football. Talking about attendance drops, historically bad attendance drops, collectively for the FBS. I'll tell you about those numbers later in the show. All right, let's get into it. Johnny Manziel back into the headlines in a positive fashion this time, going out and interviewing with Good Morning America and an exclusive, essentially, talking about his progress and, coming back from what really was a tough, dark hole, as he put it. And Manziel has gone public with his story. He hasn't played in the NFL since 2015, you may recall, with the Cleveland Browns, of course. And he's been in his fair share of negative headlines. The domestic violence case back in 2016, charges were eventually dropped, and Manziel took an anger management course. There was the partying, the drinking, the lack of self-control, the fact that Johnny Manziel just got too full of himself. He thought he was invincible, and all of this stuff just kind of piled into one and really led Manziel down a really bad spiral. And so really, you see the interview with Good Morning America, and it makes you feel that he has matured, that he has really turned things around. And I believe in second chances, and I think Johnny Manziel deserves one, or at least deserves a look from NFL scouts. He may not have the tools to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, so he may not ever be back to, a week one starter in 2018 or in 2019 or whatever the case may be. But it's clear that Manziel is reflective and remorseful in his mistakes. And I think that's the most important thing. The most important takeaway from that interview with Good Morning America is that, look, this guy is sitting back and understanding all of the mistakes that he had, all the effects he had on his family and his friends, etc., and his teammates too. So, we can brush it aside, the NFL or not, and we can focus on just the character of Manziel and how he has clearly improved as a person. And it was very obvious in his interview with Good Morning America on Monday that he's a different guy now. And I'm going to cut to actually my first soundbite here where he's talking about the effects that he had on his mother. Let's roll it.
You don't understand when people come up to us like, what the hell is your son doing? And I didn't really feel that until my mom said that. She just broke down. She was crying, and I saw the trickle-down effects of what I was doing in my daily life.
This is a guy who really gets it, I think, at this point, guys. I mean, going down the spiral of the partying and the drinking and the lack of self-control and all of this, Manziel is somebody who I feel has new perspective on life. And you see in many stories that comeback kind of mentality and that comeback kind of narrative where somebody goes down this spiral of negative headlines and bad decision making and all this and this adversity, and then a player comes back from it. And I think Johnny Manziel could be the latest example of that. And I am not here to argue that Manziel should be a week one starter in the NFL. I am arguing that he deserves a second chance, a second look, and a second opportunity to be a quarterback in the National Football League. So, with that, we have a little weigh-in for the folks watching right now on the Cam Rogers Show. Should Johnny Manziel play in the NFL again? So, I feel this is probably a polarizing topic, and comeback or not, the most important thing for me is the change in character. And what appears to be a calmer, more mature Johnny Manziel, if you watch these sound bites and you look at what he has said recently in his statements, and it's clear that he is evaluating his problem and he's becoming a better person through these solutions as he goes through them. He has gotten to the point where he can really self-diagnose himself, right? He can look back at the times that were and say, look, I was in a really bad state. I was in a dark hole. And he actually took to Twitter a couple days ago, and it was a really telling tweet because it kind of showed how the interview went on GMA. It kind of perfectly summarized the whole interview with ABC. And we'll show that tweet in a little bit here. But Manziel has matured to the point where he knows alcohol isn't the solution. And perhaps he used to think it was, but obviously not anymore. And here's the tweet. Quote, "At the end of the day, athletes are human beings too. You can get caught up in the fame, the life, but when it's all said and done, we're the exact same. Far from perfect. God bless you all, and thank you for hearing my story." So that was a couple days ago following that GMA interview. And look, he's absolutely right. We look at these athletes on the field, and we don't think about the humanality behind them. Now, I mentioned this actually in my earlier episodes of the Cam Rogers Show, how people tend to just kind of see players on a court, on a field, as just these robots for their own entertainment while they sit on the couch and enjoy it. But at the end of the day, there is a person off the field. There is a person, outside the ropes, or whatever analogy you want to make it. Well, Johnny Manziel is bringing that to the forefront with his interview and with this tweet here. And he mentions how he would self-medicate himself with alcohol, but now he's focusing on the mental health. And I think that is so important that is his main priorities, the mental side of things rather than the physical and anything like that, because it starts between the ears, especially for Johnny Manziel. And we'll roll another clip here where, he talked about that, improving the mental side of things on Monday. Let's roll it.
I started taking a look at my mental health a little bit and making it a priority in my life, and Bree making it a priority in my life, to where I'm taking medication for bipolar, and I'm working to try and make sure that I don't fall back into any type of depression, because I know where that leads me and I know how slippery of a slope that is for me.
And he also talked about how he's diagnosed with bipolar disorder. That's something we did not know prior to that interview. So I don't know if Johnny Manziel could ever be successful in the NFL. And like I said, I'm not here to argue that. I don't even think Johnny knows if he can be successful in the National Football League. That's far too down the road for me. But I do think if he works hard, improves his mechanics, maybe bulks up a bit, and focuses on the fundamentals, an NFL team may perhaps give him a look. And Manziel knows it's a day-to-day process, and really that's the only way to look at it, right? That's the best way for Johnny Manziel to look at it. He can't have this macro perspective, these long, lofty goals of, winning a Super Bowl. There's a reason he didn't mention Super Bowl and, being a champion or anything like that, because he's got the perspective now. He's not so full of himself anymore. He understands it's a day-to-day process because he is dealing with, obviously, a condition that is very serious and bipolar disorder. He's working on that. He's working on his mental side of things. And, he's got a good support system with his family. And like I said, being day-to-day, you hear about that all the time, and just from regular NFL players that are employed right now that aren't dealing with any of the stuff that Johnny Manziel is dealing with, talking about injuries and things like that, not looking to the next opponent. Johnny Manziel is certainly channeling that day-to-day kind of mentality. Here he is talking about it.
Now, the question that you asked was, is that sustainable, and will that be the case moving forward? I would like to sit here and say yes, and I have a lot of confidence that that would be the case. But at the end of the day, it's to be seen. I'm still moving forward. I'm still doing the little meticulous things that I have to do on a daily basis to try and keep this right.
So why now? Why is he coming out with an exclusive interview and talking about his story and all of that? Is there some sort of selfish gain to this? I really don't think there is. I really feel he knows it's time to kind of come clean and really change the trend and the perception of Johnny Manziel. Because everybody, you think Johnny Manziel, you think partying, you think bad decision-making, and, there's a guy that's going into the NFL draft that is drawing comparisons to this dude, one Baker Mayfield. And Johnny Manziel actually went out and said that, they are two totally different people. And maybe Johnny Manziel is kind of doing Baker Mayfield a favor right now by going out into the public and saying, look, I made really bad decisions. I'm not Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is not me, kind of thing. And, I'm becoming a better person as I go throughout these solutions that have been brought to me. So I do believe Johnny Manziel deserves a second chance. Whether that is in the NFL, maybe it's the CFL, or maybe, just maybe, he plays in Vince McMahon's XFL, and McMahon gives Manziel a little exception and lets him play in the XFL in a couple of years because, of course, McMahon said he doesn't want people with criminal records playing in the XFL. But maybe McMahon is seeing this interview here and saying to himself, okay, Johnny Manziel has a lot of time to improve upon things, and this is a very important first step in perhaps allowing me to make an exception and letting Johnny Manziel play quarterback in the XFL. So whatever the case, Manziel, I think, has the talent to be a quality football player in a professional arena. When that comes and where that'll be remains to be seen. But perhaps McMahon saw Manziel's interview, has a new perspective on Johnny football, and could allow an opportunity for him to play in that league when it launches in 2020. All right, so there's Johnny Manziel, and we'll talk about him in a matter of moments here. It is the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. presented by the Game Time app. Get up to 60% off all those last-minute sports tickets, concert tickets, and so much more. There you see the website at the bottom of your screen. It is chatsports.com/tickets to download. Get those last-minute tickets purchased for your Valentine's Day outing, and if you want me to third wheel with you, that would be fantastic. Please help me. All right, let's go into the XFL segment here. I am building the ultimate offense for this new league put out by one Vince McMahon. All right, let's start things off with the quarterback position. I mentioned I'll be talking about Johnny Manziel. There he is. All right, so first of all, McMahon is going to have to make a little exception here to Johnny Manziel. And by the way, I am doing this segment here about the XFL because all of you YouTube commenters out there just loved to talk about it so much. I think the first video is up to 50,000 views. Let's try to make it 70,000 views and 5 million comments, all negative. Please come at me. But yes, Johnny Manziel, quarterback here, my ultimate offense. So he's working hard. He's sober. His mental game is as good as it's ever been, and it's only going to get better. Remember, he's got a couple of years left to go. Plus, he's fun to watch. Like, do we all remember him playing at A&M? The guy was electric. The guy was enjoyable. He was entertainment. And if the XFL wants to kind of beat out the NFL, they have to kind of go with this entertainment kind of angle. And Manziel's exclusive with GMA made everyone in the news networks talk about him. I am here right now on the Cam Rogers Show talking about Johnny Manziel. The guy moves the needle. And I think McMahon likely sees that and thinks about the sheer positive headlines that Manziel could possibly produce. Think about the press conferences and the on-the-field interviews and all of that. And again, we are seeing a change in character from Johnny Manziel that we just have not seen before. And he still has a couple more years to improve upon that. But if you look at that GMA interview, it's really telling that, he is a new person. He's kind of forming into a new perspective on life. So Johnny Manziel is my quarterback for the ultimate XFL offense. Let's go into the running back position. Trent Richardson. Now you see there, he's the running back of the Rough Riders, a CFL team. Now he was the ultimate bust in the last couple of years with the Browns and the Colts respectively, and Trent Richardson perhaps could find new life here playing back in the States in the XFL. So not a bad season, by the way, when he played in the CFL back in 2017, averaged over 5.4 yards per carry, and obviously he's in football shape because he is playing professional football. Hasn't played in the NFL since 2014 with the Indianapolis Colts, but he's a bruiser back. He could be great on the goal line. He'd be a nice little compliment to Johnny Manziel. Manziel can kind of do a little option with Trent Richardson, and Manziel can be the guy that bounces it outside, and Richardson could be that inside guy, especially at the goal line. And look, I think he'd be a quality running back in the XFL. I think he'd be a really tough guy to bring down. And there you see that second point there. And this was recently. Nick Saban said Trent Richardson would be a bargain for any NFL team out there. So Saban still believes that Richardson is an NFL quality running back, which is very telling to me, and the best coach in college football, perhaps in college football history, saying Trent Richardson still has a chance to be successful in the NFL. Well, he certainly must believe that Richardson could be successful in the XFL, man. So there is Trent Richardson as my running back. Now, wide receiver number 1. Bring on the salsa, Victor Cruz. So he was released by the Bears in September, but he recently said, I'm not retired yet. I'm going to continue to play. I'm going to give it one more shot. I'm going to see if a team will give me a chance. He is currently 31, so he still has some juice left. And, of course, he'll be older once the XFL kind of comes to fruition in 2020. But Victor Cruz, look, he's not that far removed from those 1,000-plus yard seasons. Yeah, it's 6 years, but really not that long of a time. And you look at his average yards per reception in his career, even pretty good towards the end of his tenure with the Giants, remained pretty solid. So, he has mentioned he wants to give the NFL one last shot, and I don't know if he will become an NFL wide receiver ever again on an active roster. But let's say it doesn't work out for him in the National Football League and he looks elsewhere. I think the XFL, there's an opportunity there for Victor Cruz. to kind of be successful yet again. I mean, he was really an electric player to watch. He was really fun on the football field. You obviously enjoyed his salsa dances. It brought creativity to the touchdowns that he had, and, obviously a lot of personality as well. So Victor Cruz is my wide receiver number 1. So Johnny Manziel throwing touchdown passes to Victor Cruz off the play action to Trent Richardson. I mean, come on. I think it'd be pretty fun. So we do have a reaction poll about the XFL. You got a couple of years to think about this, folks, but let me ask you right here, right now. Will you watch the XFL in 2020? Give us a heart for obviously. Give us a like for no way. And if you're in the middle somewhere, well, let me know in the comments section. I'll be interested to see what you think about the XFL. And again, the YouTube commenters out there, very polarized on it. Some people are excited about it. Some people are not so excited about it. Some people just kind of want to make fun of Cam Rodgers, which is totally fine. So let's get into wide receiver number 2 here. Stay with me now, folks. Usain Bolt, world-class sprinter. Who would not want to see him run routes? I mean, are you kidding me? Okay, so Usain Bolt doesn't even need to study a route tree, because all he needs to do, fly route, fly route, fly route. He would gobble up double coverage every single play, opening up opportunities for Victor Cruz underneath and perhaps the tight end that I get to in a matter of moments here. And I did a little research here. The estimated 40-yard dash time for Usain Bolt would be 3.97 seconds. That is unbelievable. Now, he is as thin as can be, and he's probably going to have to bulk up a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think it would be a fantastic world-class sprinter, a world-class wide receiver there for the XFL. I think it would bring a lot of fun. And think about the one-on-one coverage that he might get, too. Let's say a team is blitzing this team, and Usain Bolt is on one-on-one coverage. Can anybody actually keep up with this guy? So it's something to monitor there. And Usain Bolt, look, he's probably more likely to play soccer. So, the other kind of football out there, he's more of a soccer guy, which is totally fine. This is definitely a pipe dream here. But who knows? Vince McMahon may give him a call and say, hey, Usain, maybe give it a shot, man. Give it a shot. I know you're not sprinting anymore, but maybe you want to play on the outside and, burn some fellow cornerbacks out there in the XFL, score some touchdowns, etc. So we do have a reaction poll about Bolt here. Would you want to see Usain Bolt play wide receiver? Give us a heart for sure. Why not? Give us a like, though, if you'd prefer him to play soccer. So he definitely has mentioned that he has interest in soccer. Has never really talked about American football per se, but certainly a fun thing to think about. And, again, we are going through this segment here with a sense of lightheartedness in the fact that, look, there's no way Usain Bolt's going to play in the XFL. I mean, I just think he'd get hurt. He'd have to bulk up a little bit, like I said. But, again, would be fun to see him play out there. All right, so he is my wide receiver number 2. Let's get to my tight end now, and perhaps a potential presidential candidate, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Tight end. Now, he played football at Miami, 6'5", 260, and he played tackle at Miami, appearing in 39 games with a total of 77 tackles and 4 sacks. And I actually want him at tight end, though. I think he'd be a really good blocking tight end and perhaps solid at the goal line as well. He'd have to work on his agility, his speed a little bit, and have to balance a presidential campaign at the same time, which I totally think would be difficult. But this guy would bring so many fans to the XFL, it's not even funny. One of the richest actors out there, really just one of the biggest brands out there. And so 45 years old, so right now he's 45. He'd probably be 47-ish by the time the XFL comes around. So he'd be approaching 50, and he'd have to continue working out and staying in shape and improve upon his speed and all that. But a nice little blocking tight end there for Johnny Manziel. Hey, I'm not saying there's a chance, but, it'd be certainly fun to watch. So Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is my potential tight end here for the ultimate XFL offense. Should Dwayne "The Rock" play in the XFL, folks, or run for president, or both? Let me know what you think in the comments section. Throw in your thoughts there, because he has floated around that idea that, yeah, maybe I might campaign and run to be president of the United States in 2020. And, of course, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is a guy that everybody knows, and a lot of people like him. They think he's an entertaining guy. I mean, you think back to the WWE days, and yes, Vince McMahon has mentioned he doesn't want crossover from the WWE and the XFL, but this is The Rock, people. Like, this is not just some random WWE guy. He's one of the richest men on the planet. So, obviously, a big-time brand name and could bring a lot of revenue to the XFL. So, to recap, my ultimate XFL offense, here it is. Johnny Manziel at quarterback, Trent Richardson at running back, Victor Cruz at the wide receiver position, Usain Bolt at wide receiver, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson at tight end. All right, I got some honorable mentions as well. I'll go through these too. So here you go. So this would be the B team, if you will. Tim Tebow at quarterback, CJ Spiller at running back. Why not? 5-star recruit back of the day. Jalen Strong at wide receiver. Braylon Edwards at wide receiver. And Jalen Strong, of course, playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars this season, got hurt, tore his ACL in December. Kellen Winslow Jr., don't call it a comeback, at the tight end position. And there you go. And I believe we are getting in some breaking news about Johnny Manziel. And let's pull it up here on your screen, because I'm talking about this guy playing for the XFL in 2020. Johnny Manziel has announced he'll join the Spring League, which is a 4-team league with a season from March 28th to April 15th. By the way, Kellen Winslow Jr. also expected to play. And I believe he also played in 2017 in that spring league as well. So a couple of my names here on my list all of a sudden planning on playing for the spring league, which is a very interesting note there. So Johnny Manziel, the interview on Monday with GMA, and then goes ahead and announces that he will be playing in the spring league. So pretty cool right there. So we'll, of course, be following Johnny Manziel's progress, and Kellen Winslow Jr. as well. Perhaps he makes a comeback to the NFL, or perhaps he joins the XFL in 2020. All right, folks, this is the Cam Rogers Show, presented by the Game Time app. Get up to 60% off all those last-minute sports tickets, concert tickets, and so much more. chatsports.com/tickets. That's the website to download the app today. Get it done, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Cam Rogers. Check me out on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. Just wrapped up my discussion about the XFL and Johnny Manziel, etc. Let's get into the NFL now. Let's get into my top potential free agent additions for the AFC South and NFC South, respectively. Let's start in the AFC South and look at the Indianapolis Colts. You've seen this guy a couple of times in my segments before. There is Andrew Norwell, guard for the Panthers. And I think the priority for the Colts, much like the priority for the 49ers, should be to protect their quarterback. And so for the Colts, it should be to protect Andrew Luck. And the Colts actually aren't in as bad of shape on the line as you may think. Ryan Kelly coming back at center. You got Jack Mewhort, who could be re-signed as well. They may grab Quentin Nelson in the draft. And why not bring in Norwell to really piece together this offensive line? Frank Reich, the new head coach there, should make this a priority to address that front five, protect Andrew Luck, and build your offense, your team from there. Andrew Norwell is going to get a lot of calls throughout the free agency period. And being in a division for the Colts here, where you have Jarrell Casey and J.J. Watt and all of these good defensive linemen, the Colts would be quite smart to pay up for Andrew Norwell, who's probably top 5, one of the most complete guards in the National Football League, and nobody really talks about him. And this stat is all you need to know about Andrew Norwell. Here it is. He didn't allow a sack or a hit all season long. Surrendered just 15 total pressures across 1,140 snaps and 17 games, including the playoffs. Unbelievable stuff from Norwell. Look, the Carolina Panthers are going to probably struggle to keep this guy. They're not in the greatest salary cap situation. Meanwhile, the Indianapolis Colts are in a really good salary cap position. And I think they will throw money and money and money at Andrew Norwell to get him to play on that offensive line. But I mentioned the 49ers as well. They want to protect Jimmy Garoppolo. I think the 49ers could make a run at Norwell. And a couple other teams that are in need of offensive line help, like the Jets, and they have a lot of money to spend as well. But this is the top potential free agent addition for the Colts. This is essentially best case scenario for them, the best free agent they can possibly have. I think it's Andrew Norwell, guard for the Panthers, as you see, graded as the number 3 guard according to Pro Football Focus, named first-team All-Pro in 2017. And if you're Chris Ballard and Frank Reich, you're thinking about that front five, you're thinking about that offensive line, and you're thinking about the health of Andrew Luck. And from what I can gather and from what I understand, it looks like Andrew Luck will be good to go in Week 1 of 2018. We are far from that, but all indications are Andrew Luck is headed in the right direction. But you got to focus on the interior of that offensive line. If there's pressure coming up on that interior, that's when Andrew Luck can get hurt. So Andrew Norwell, top potential free agent addition for the Colts. Let's go to the Tennessee Titans now, a team that struggled in the secondary last season. So with that, I have Kyle Fuller, cornerback from the Chicago Bears, as a potential free agent addition and the best potential free agent addition at that. Finished 4th on the Bears with 68 tackles and grabbed 2 of the team's 8 interceptions. Led the Bears with 22 passes defensed as well. Really a fantastic slot corner. Was kind of overshadowed because he was playing in Chicago, and you know the Chicago Bears didn't have a great season, but they really did have a good campaign on the defensive side of the ball. Were highly ranked in these statistics. And Fuller, pretty good durability too. Has started 46 of 48 games with the Bears, although did miss all of 2016 with that injury there. And you know, if you brush that aside, you know, it's pretty solid durability there with the Chicago Bears. Titans allowed the 8th most yards through the air in 2017. Tennessee defenders allowed 27 touchdown passes while managing only a dozen interceptions. So the problems, we're giving up touchdowns, we're not taking away interceptions. Kyle Fuller can kind of help buck that trend a little bit, as you see his Pro Football Focus rank of 22nd among cornerbacks. Really a great bounce-back season for him. And the Titans are pretty solid in the front 7 with Arakpo and Derek Morgan and Jarrell Casey. It's that back end that really concerns me the most. And I think Kyle Fuller can really help things there. And when you're playing in a division with a Deshaun Watson and a healthy Andrew Luck, you need to be able to stop the pass. Kyle Fuller can certainly help make that happen. So from one slot corner to another, let's go to the Houston Texans here. Patrick Robinson, best potential free agent addition for Houston. Robinson, I think, is an elite slot corner. Way better than last year's slot corner for the Texans, Kareem Jackson, who had a really, really bad season. And Robinson sported a Pro Football Focus grade of 89.8, which is unbelievable. Allowed just 54.5% of his passes thrown his way to be caught. The second best mark in the league, only behind one Chris Harris Jr., who, by the way, could be testing the free agent waters as well, or the open market waters if he is indeed cut. So the Texans, they need help in the secondary. Like I said, Jackson, brutal season. So insert Patrick Robinson here instead at slot corner, along with Jonathan Joseph, who's getting up there in age, but still playing at a solid pace. That's a pretty good secondary, at least all things considered, compared to 2017. Now, the Texans have issues on the offensive line as well. They have to address that, especially after they traded away Dwayne Brown, their left tackle. There's a lot of holes there in that front 5, and they should focus on protecting Deshaun Watson. And you couple that with the Texans may also look at Lamarcus Joyner, the safety there. He's a free agent from the Rams. Tremaine Johnson, another free agent from the Rams as well. One of those guys may get the franchise tag. But I think Robinson will help big time at the slot, and the Texans have around $56 million in cap space, which is better than most teams out there. He is 31, and he's a bit of a late bloomer, but he'd also immediately improve the Texans secondary. So maybe somewhat of a 2 to 3 year deal for Patrick Robinson, something like that. Nothing crazy, and no like franchise cornerback kind of deal. But 2 to 3 years, because this was kind of a year out of nowhere for Patrick Robinson in 2017. We'll see if he can replicate that in 2018. But he is the best potential free agent addition for the Houston Texans. Let's go to the Jacksonville Jaguars now, wrapping up the AFC South. And it's Allen Robinson. And it's not really an addition per se because, well, he was like just on the team and all, and yeah, but he is a free agent, so this would perhaps be the best potential retainment for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Injured his ACL in week 1, and we didn't see him after that. The franchise tag would cost around $16 million, so it would not be cheap for the Jacksonville Jaguars to bring him back, and they may have to make a couple of cap cuts at that as well, but they need this guy, especially with the uncertainty of Blake Bortles. The Jaguars must do everything in their power to put the most talent around Blake Bortles. And the wonder is, and I understand the argument here, that 2015 was Allen Robinson's peak, catching 80 passes for 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns. But let's not forget, he's only 25 years old, guys. So very, very young player, and the Jags have a cast of just average wide receivers. You know, I mean, good draft picks and all that, but really have not taken over that number 1 role. At least certainly did not back in 2017 when Allen Robinson got hurt, Marquise Lee, D.D. Westbrook, etc. Jalen Strong was hurt. Nobody really became that number 1 wideout for the Jaguars. So that's why it's so important for this team to keep Allen Robinson. And like I mentioned, not going to be monetarily great for the Jaguars because, well, it's a $16 million price tag if they were to give him the franchise tag. Now, Bortles' $19 million salary for the 2018 season becomes fully guaranteed if he's on the roster the first day of the league year in March. Now, the caveat, the Jaguars can't cut Bortles while he is hurt or recovering from injury. Now, you may know about the whole wrist surgery and all that. So, like it or not, he's probably staying with Jacksonville, and it'd be smart of Jaguars leadership to bring back Allen Robinson. And look, there are a lot of articles out there saying maybe Robinson could go to the Niners, maybe he could go to the Cowboys, maybe he could go to some other team out there. So we have a reaction poll for everybody watching the show. Which team will Allen Robinson play for in 2018? Give us a heart for the Jaguars, a like for the 49ers, hey, a laughing face for the Dallas Cowboys, or an angry face for another team. And if you're throwing up that angry face, let me know which team you're thinking here. So throw it in the comments section. Allen Robinson has, circled many headlines out there as the prize of free agency because he is such a great talent. But certainly let me know what your thoughts are. And Allen Robinson, of course, coming back from a brutal injury. We'll see if he can kind of get back to that 2015 kind of form. But he's a guy who can wrestle for the football. He's not a weak wide receiver at all. He can go into bump and run coverage and be successful. And I think that's why he's going to get a lot of value in the open market if indeed he tests the open market. But again, for the Jacksonville Jaguars, best potential free agent addition for them, air quotes free agent, Allen Robinson. Throw in your votes, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be tracking them here on the program as we take you through the NFC South now. Best potential free agent additions, and this would be a retainment here for the Carolina Panthers, Andrew Norwell. But it's a pipe dream for Carolina because I don't know if they can afford him. I think he's going to demand a lot of money. The Panthers projected to have only around $20 million in cap space, and I mentioned how Norwell would probably demand top guard money, kind of like Trey Turner. So with that, the Panthers, they're going to have to make some salary cap cuts if they want to make a run at this guard here. And so some names to watch out for, maybe a Jonathan Stewart, a Matt Khalil as potential cap cuts here. Stewart is old, and the Panthers can go to the draft for a fresh new running back. And Khalil has a massive cap hit, so while the Panthers can kind of make that cut, they can also put a lot of faith in this Tyler Larson that they have and throw him there at the center position. So Andrew Norwell, best potential free agent retainment / addition, however you want to put it, for the Carolina Panthers. But again, this is a bit of a pipe dream for Carolina. I think they are going to lose this guy. Norwell, he should go out and test the open market and see what kind of money he can get. I've talked about it on my show many times, how just offensive line play in the NFL as a whole seems to be going on a downward spiral. And when you have a guard who is as good as Andrew Norwell, GMs out there are going to throw the world at you. And so I think, the 49ers are a team to monitor with Norwell. I mentioned the Indianapolis Colts. They have a good amount of cap space. Maybe the Houston Texans. They have a solid amount of cap space as well and a big-time need on the offensive line. So for Carolina, it would be a huge victory for them to retain Andrew Norwell. And I'm going to read his stat one more time because I think it's important. He did not allow a sack or a hit all season long and surrendered just 15 total pressures across 1,140 snaps. Unbelievable stuff. Andrew Norwell, best potential free agent addition there for the Carolina Panthers. Let's get to the Atlanta Falcons here. I've got Sheldon Richardson. So this one, another pipe dream as well. He's been tied to the Jets and the Seahawks to stay with them routinely throughout the headlines. But the Falcons do have a need at tackle, considering Dontari Poe is a free agent too. And if he walks, then it's going to become a really big-time need. So bring in Sheldon Richardson there, and that would be a really solid pickup for them. Graded as the Seattle Seahawks' best defensive lineman at 83.8, according to Pro Football Focus. He would be crucial for eating up blocks on that Falcons front line. Has plenty of speed as well. He can, outmaneuver offensive linemen. And look, the Falcons have a lot of speed on that front seven. We saw them actually play really good defense, especially in the playoffs and towards the end of 2017. So thinking maybe Sheldon Richardson could come in for the Atlanta Falcons and really help that front four there for Atlanta, let those linebackers kind of ball out a little bit. And again, you see at the bottom of your screen, defensive tackle would become a huge need if Dontari Poe does indeed walk. And Poe actually had a solid season for the Falcons as well. The problem here is this. The Jets have a lot of cap space, so it won't be hard to lure Sheldon Richardson to MetLife because, one, Sheldon never really wanted to leave the Jets. He likes Todd Bowles a lot. And two, the Jets have a lot of money to throw at Sheldon. So you couple that with the fact that the Falcons have just $12 million in projected cap space, which is actually worse than Seattle's situation. This is definitely, fairies and unicorns and all that. It would be a huge get for the Falcons, but it's just there's a lot stacking up against them. But again, we're talking about hypotheticals here. Best potential free agent additions. For the Atlanta Falcons, it would be one Sheldon Richardson. All right, let's get into the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here, a team that is in ultimate need of a disruptor on that defensive line. Ziggy Ansah would be the best potential free agent addition for Tampa Bay. Now, they've been tied in many mock drafts to Bradley Chubb, and I think it would be smart of them to go out and grab him in that first round. The Buccaneers don't have any answers in terms of pass rushing ability currently on the team. Okay, so they're going to have to get active in free agency, going to have to get active in the draft, and if the Lions somehow let Ziggy Ansah walk, which would be a major, major mistake, I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will give this guy a look. Now, Ansah has had his fair share of durability issues. There's no doubt about that. He has been a fixture on injury reports in the last few years. The Bucs have a lot of cap space, $60 million. And they could throw a good amount of money at Ziggy to come on over to Tampa Bay and be a disruptor on that front line. Ansah had 12 sacks in 2017, and that's considering he was hurt for a lot of 2017. So if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers want to address their immediate need in terms of their pass rushing ability, imagine them getting Ziggy Ansah in free agency, guys, and then also drafting Bradley Chubb. Be a pretty darn good rushing duo there You got a veteran in Ansah who can kind of mold Bradley Chubb into a veteran defensive end in his own right. There you see it there as well. Tampa Bay finishing last in sacks in 2017. So if Ansah is gobbled up by the Lions, keep an eye out for Trent Murphy or maybe one Alex Okafor. Speaking of which, I have him down as the best potential free agent addition, retainment, etc. for the New Orleans Saints. Why? Because he is an integral part of that defense, and I think it is really important for the Saints to keep him. Fantastic size, as you see there, 6'4", 260, but he moves really well at that size. The only issue here, I'm wondering if the price tag is going to be too much for Alex Okafor, and maybe he goes out and tests the free agent waters, and why wouldn't you? It's kind of like the same logic with the guard position. Teams out there really covet good edge rushers, good line disruptors, if you will, players who can get to the quarterback. Alex Okafor is one of those guys. And it really comes down to if he wants to stay in New Orleans or, and perhaps take a little less money or go out and try free agency and make a lot of money. Because there are a lot of teams out there that are in need of an edge rusher, and they also have a lot of cap space looking at you, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Alex Okafor, he is there for the New Orleans Saints as the best potential free agent addition for them. And I think New Orleans leadership knows that it's really important to keep this guy. I think they're going to do all they can to keep him in New Orleans there. All right, so let's recap my names here. We got a little listicle recap of the AFC South and NFC South, respectively, for the best potential free agent additions. Let's go to the AFC South. Andrew Norwell, guard for the Colts. Kyle Fuller, slot corner for the Titans. Patrick Robinson, another slot corner for the Texans. Allen Robinson, wide receiver for the Jaguars. Let's go to the NFC South now. Andrew Norwell, there he is for the Carolina Panthers, the team he was on last year. Sheldon Richardson, would be really tough to make it happen, but there he is for the Atlanta Falcons. Ziggy Ansah, if he somehow walks from the Detroit Lions, he would go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as that best case scenario. And then Alex Okafor remaining with the New Orleans Saints. This is the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. How we doing, ladies and gentlemen? Happy Valentine's Day out there. We are presented by the Game Time app. Check them out, chatsports.com/tickets to get up to 60% off. All those last-minute sports tickets, concert tickets, and so much more. Hey, guys, did you forget a gift for that special someone in your life? Don't worry. Head on the Game Time app, get some tickets for the game tonight, and it'll make it seem like, you had it all planned from the beginning. So there you go, because this app is perfect for you procrastinators out there. You get fantastic deals on these tickets at really last minute, 11th hour kind of situations. So there you go. Cam Rogers Show is sponsored by the Game Time app. Check me out on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. I am Cam Rogers. You want a shout out on the show? Hit me up in the comments section. I'll be sure to say hello. And we thank you for coming along for the ride here on episode 65 of the program. All right, so talked about best potential free agent additions for the AFC South and NFC South respectively. I've got my top 5 potential franchise tag candidates now. Let's get into number 1. This guy's going to happen. He's going to be franchise tag. There's no doubt about it. Le'Veon Bell, running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. $14.5 million if he is indeed franchise tag. He has threatened to sit out 2018 if this does come to fruition. I don't really believe that. He also threatened to retire too, which I definitely don't believe. There's no way he walks and tests free agency. You can certainly forget about that. Maybe there's a chance the Steelers kind of try to work through a long-term deal with Le'Veon Bell. I just don't see it happening. Despite the drama, my suspicion is Bell will be just fine with a franchise tag and a nice little $14.5 million payday. But we do want to hear from you on the Cam Rogers Show. Is Le'Veon Bell worth a long-term deal? Perhaps in this offseason or in general? Let me know in the comments section here on Facebook Live. I would certainly love to hear your thoughts about that. But Le'Veon Bell is my number 1 guy to be franchise tagged this offseason. He's a guy to certainly monitor throughout the coming months as we go through the rest of February, and then March hits and the new league year hits as well, and the window for the franchise tag opens up pretty darn soon this month too. So let me know about Le'Veon Bell. Is he worth a long-term deal? And we have Sherman chiming in the comment section saying, I believe he is. All right, so keep the comments flowing here on the Cam Rogers Show as I get into candidate number 2 to be franchise tagged. Demarcus Lawrence, defensive end for the Dallas Cowboys. What a season he had. 14.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, and Stephen Jones has recently said that Demarcus Lawrence is one of our top priorities in the offseason. So with that, whether they work on a long-term deal, whether they work on the franchise tag situation, something's going to get done. There's no way he's going to walk and test the free agent waters. I think Demarcus Lawrence is going to be a fixture of that Dallas Cowboys defense for the years to come. You do see at the bottom of your screen, I don't think long-term deal is out of the question here. I think there's a possibility he gets a long-term deal. He does have the same agent as one Olivier Vernon, who got a big-time contract a couple of years ago, so something to monitor there. But this is a foregone conclusion. He's going to remain with the Dallas Cowboys, whether it's with the franchise tag or a long-term deal. That is, the big question mark. But I have him as number 2 in my franchise tag candidates rankings, if you will. By the way, Demarcus Lawrence, the only player in the NFL with 13-plus sacks and 4 or more forced fumbles. So pretty darn good campaign for him. I think, there's a potentiality he could get paid big time this offseason, or maybe the Cowboys want to kick the can down the road one more year. Let's see if we can get one more fantastic season out of DeMarcus and then give him that big fat contract in the offseason of 2019. So we'll see about that. But he's at number 2 in my top 5 franchise tag candidates. Let's get to number 3 now. Lamarcus Joyner, safety for the Rams. So he should be the top priority in my eyes for the Rams leadership. 3 interceptions, 9 passes defensed, a touchdown, and a forced fumble in 12 games. Likely going to cost around $11.5 million in 2018 for that franchise tag, which I think is doable, especially if one Trumaine Johnson walks. Lamarcus Joyner, the number 3rd ranked safety according to Pro Football Focus, so really a fantastic campaign. You got John Johnson there in the secondary as well. I could see a scenario where maybe they re-sign Sammy Watkins, they franchise tag Lamarcus Joyner, and they let Trumaine Johnson actually walk and test free agency. I could see that going down with the Rams there. Look, Joyner's versatility is really, really good, and I think it's really, really, really important for the Rams to keep him because of this. Can play center field, but also can creep up and play a little slot as well. Wade Phillips, one of the great defensive minds out there, knows what he has in him. And I think it would be pretty insane for the Rams to let Lamarcus Joyner just walk altogether. I think it has to be a franchise tag. It has to be some sort of extension, long-term deal, however you want to put it. His range is his greatest asset, and Wade Phillips loves rangy players. And I think it would be crazy if Lamarcus Joyner just was not on the team at all. So for the Rams, I think it would make sense to franchise tag Joyner at $11.5 million. It's kind of the hit. There's no doubt about it. He's my number 3 guy in terms of franchise tag candidates. I think Wade Phillips will be in Sean McVay's ear. He will be in the ears of leadership and et cetera with the Rams saying, look, we want Joyner. If you want this defense to continue to improve, we need Joyner back there in the secondary. So he's there at number 3. Let's get to number 4 now. Talked about him earlier, Ziggy Ansah. So he's the best potential free agent addition for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers if he doesn't get the franchise tag from the Detroit Lions or a long-term deal or an extension. So he's 28 years old, 2013 first-round pick. He's still got a lot of football left in him. I know maybe the injuries could kind of make him a 29-year-old, right? You can kind of up the age a little bit because of all the injuries, but 44 sacks in 5 seasons. He's going to demand a lot of money. Franchise tag would cost approximately $17 million. And you look at, this decade here, at least one pass rusher has been slapped with the franchise tag in every offseason this decade. So Ansah could be that guy to continue that trend. Maybe Demarcus Lawrence is the guy to continue that trend. One of those two is probably going to continue it on. So Ziggy Ansah, I think it would be really important for the Detroit Lions to franchise tag him. He's at number 4. Matt Patricia, new head coach there. Obviously a defensive mind, a very intelligent guy at that. Probably understands the importance of Detroit's improvement on that front 7. Because let's face it, the front 7 was not really good last year, and that was with Ziggy Ansah, who had a good amount of sacks with 12. The secondary is in good shape, but the front 7 needs to be improved. And I think step 1 is to franchise tag Ziggy Ansah and then perhaps address the tackle position, maybe the linebacker position as well for the Detroit Lions. But they need pass rushing help. They need help in terms of stopping the run. They could look elsewhere for that. But Ziggy Ansah, really important for Detroit to keep him. All right, so he's number 4 in terms of franchise tag candidates. Let's get to my final name here, Case Keenum. All right, no, I'm not saying this is going to happen because if you remember my bold predictions on Monday, I have him going to the Big Toaster and playing for the Arizona Cardinals. But there is perhaps a situation where the Vikings keep Teddy Bridgewater and franchise tag Case Keenum for $23.6 million and kind of use him as insurance for Teddy Bridgewater because I really do believe Teddy is going to be the week 1 starter in 2018. And so, look, it's a big investment for Case Keenum to be your backup quarterback at $23.6 million approximately, could be more. So it doesn't make complete sense. Probably makes more sense to tag him if you think he's going to be your starting quarterback, but you guys all know my concerns about Case Keenum, right? With Pat Shurmur leaving and becoming the head coach of the New York Giants, you got to wonder if that's going to hurt Case Keenum's play in 2018, right? Maybe he was just a flash in the pan. You saw these struggles in the NFC Championship game against the Philadelphia Eagles. I understand that was one game, and in terms of the grand scheme of things of 2017, he had a good season. But Pat Shurmur, moving on, that relationship has now been severed. Case Keenum, I don't know if he is worth $23.6 million to be your backup. But I put him here at number 5 because there is certainly the potential for him to get the franchise tag, and there have been rumblings about it among multiple media members out there. So there you go, Case Keenum as a potential franchise tag candidate. Let's get to my full-on list here to recap. Le'Veon Bell, running back of the Steelers. Demarcus Lawrence, defensive end for the Dallas Cowboys. Lamarcus Joyner, safety for the Rams. Ziggy Ansah, defensive end for the Detroit Lions. And then there is Case Keenum at number 5, quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. By the way, for the Minnesota Vikings, all of their quarterbacks are free agents. So Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Bradford, Case Keenum, got to make some decisions on all of these guys. Who walks, who stays, who gets the tag, who gets the long-term deal, et cetera, et cetera. So there you go. There is my list of potential franchise tag candidates. This is the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. How we doing, ladies and gentlemen? I am Cam Rogers. Check me out on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. Wrapping up the program with a couple minutes left with a final word on really some bad news about college football. The numbers came out recently in terms of the FBS, and it saw a historically bad attendance drop. So in 2017, it was down an average of 1,409 fans per game from 2016. That marked the largest drop since 1983, when an average attendance declined 1,527 fans per game from 1982. What does this mean? I really don't know, but I'm reporting it to you. I am letting you kind of interpret these numbers and kind of throw out your thoughts about it, but really interesting because, following college football this past season, it is clear it is in a very good position in terms of excitement and fandom and all of that stuff, but getting people to the games, I guess, is somewhat of a problem, and I can kind of attest to that as a Maryland Terrapins fan. The student section is pretty much empty by, the 14th minute in the third quarter. So there you go. Some numbers there on the FBS and perhaps a little concerning there for college football fans out there. So go to games, ladies and gentlemen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am wrapping up the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. Don't you worry if you missed any of the program. Keep it right here on this video. We are looping it for you. Many thanks to Game Time for sponsoring today's show. I will be back on Friday at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. More free agents, predictions, and all of that good stuff. Don't you worry as well if you're going to miss that show, because you can get the Cam Rogers Show podcast version wherever you go. I am saying goodbye. Take care, everybody.
Did you know the ticket